is an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Unspoiled, covering WestWorld, Season 1, Episode 5, Contrapasso. In this episode, Natasha should have looked up what Contrapasso means.
But Rashawn did.
This is why I have co-hosts. Welcome to Unspoiled. Welcome to the show, everyone. I'm Natasha.
I'm Rashawn.
So tell me, what does it mean?
It is derived from the Latin contra and patior, which means suffer the opposite. Contrapasso refers to the punishment of souls in Dante's Inferno by a process either resembling or contrasting the sin itself.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay, well, I'm going to have to turn that over in my mind as I'm talking about this episode. Because this one has some shit happening.
Yes,
I don't know what to make of it at
Yay.
all. At all. So, right off the bat, we have Ford talking to his little buddy down in the friggin' dungeons, it feels like.
Down in cold storage, knocking back a few with old Bill. And he tells this story.
This fucking story that is just such a bummer. It's all right. The story is, so we found a dog who'd been trained to try and chase things for racing, and then one day we let it off the leash, and it chased something for real and killed it, and then it just didn't know what to do. Oh, all right.
Gee, I wonder what that means.
Like, it's almost like he's trying to plant the idea in this poor fridged asshole's mind of like, well, you can try and get out, buddy, but what are you even going to do when you do? Nothing, that's what. Get back in your bag. You know?
Well, yeah. What do they do if they can get out? Which I think this episode sort of tries to make us wonder about. Like, if one of these hosts can get off its track, you know? Mm-hmm. What will it do?
I feel like that's, like, I'm gonna briefly almost do a Black Panther spoiler, but not really. What does it look like to break free? Do you just want to become the person that you were railing against? Is that, like, because we always, you know, the rise of the machines with Terminator, you know, mm-hmm. The whole idea behind that is that they're rising above us.
Yep, up against and then above us.
Exactly. The whole point is to outstrip us.
Right.
And I suspect that's what anyone who's like concerned about this would be expecting.
Sure, that's they're all going to take control of the park and then the humans will be the entertainment.
Exactly. Dance for me. But yeah, I don't really know if that is what they would want, because I don't know, like, if they don't have a particular objective too, can they organize?
Well, that's a really interesting point, because so far in the story, they've all been kind of isolated. Mm-hmm. You know, each of the hosts are going through these things, and their stories are interconnected because they're all part of the larger narrative of the park. But we've been watching Dolores go through her thing, and we've been watching Maeve. And how about Maeve? We've been watching Maeve go through her thing, and Teddy kind of going through his thing. And it doesn't seem at this point like there's any plan that they're all going to get together to then, sort of subvert the power structure of the park.
Right.
They're all just kind of going through their own little loops. But that doesn't, we don't know if that's how this plays out in its entirety. But up until this point, that's what it's been.
Yeah. Yeah, so I don't know. It's just like this story just it is also quite sad,
A little bit.
Because that dog was just trained. And there's this kind of idea there that, like, you can give something a home and, like, get it out of what you might perceive as being a shitty situation. Mm-hmm. But once you do that, it's still what it was.
And also, I think it's important to remember in the story, he says his father always warned them not to ever let the dog off the leash.
Right.
Because his father says he knows exactly what the dog is. Mm-hmm. And the boys as children just couldn't resist.
Yeah.
And Ford says that they did it, and for that moment that the dog is running full speed, and it's an old dog at this point, but he says something like it's the most beautiful thing he's ever seen. Mm-hmm. Kind of like this dog being exactly what it was meant to be, and almost recognizing that this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
Right. And
just does it with 100% abandon. And then gets the cat, the poor cat.
Oh my God, that's so sad.
And he says to everyone's horror, rips it to shreds. It's like, I have this thing on a leash, and I know what's going to happen if I take it off, but I just can't resist the urge to see. Mm-hmm. And so I let it off its leash.
We were so busy wondering if we could that we didn't stop to think.
Listen, how is that the most appropriate quote in movie history of all time?
Well, and like that, okay, you know what? I meant to bring this up and then forgot about it and just remembered again now. I just finished reading Jurassic Park for the book club for this month, which was written by Michael Crichton, who wrote WestWorld. Hi.
Oh, yeah, that's
sense
right.
Of theme. He's very into the whole idea of, like, what happens when you just take it too far just because.
Mm-hmm.
Just because you're just like, well, I don't know.
Someone in the group wants you to watch the movie. I haven't even ever watched the movie.
WestWorld?
Yeah. I've never seen it. I've heard terrible things about it. Steve won't watch this show because of the movie, which I think is wholly unfair. He really just won't watch the show but he says...
I was about to say, that's just an excuse.
But he likes to say it's because the movie was so terrible. Which I am down to watch it at some point just for shits and giggles. I understand that it is nothing like the TV show, and it doesn't give anything away. But yeah.
Well... Get at me, listeners. Let me know. What do you think I should do? Should I listen to it or should I watch it, rather? Because I'm not against it, but I confess that's part of why I didn't have the interest initially, was that I was worried that would inadvertently spoil me, or at least put ideas in my head that I wouldn't have had otherwise.
Right.
That would lead me towards some...
I might have to watch it first just to make sure, but I feel almost 100% positive that what this show is doing is wholly different. And really all it has in common is the name and the idea of a theme park like this. And that's about it, about all they have in common.
And in Jurassic Park, the book, I was actually really pleasantly surprised. And y'all can listen to the podcast on it in a couple weeks. I'm going to be recording it with Money from the Buffy podcast. But there was a lot more talk about how when science was first... Science used to be almost like being an artist, where you did it for the sake of learning things, but you weren't making money off it, and you didn't have sponsorships, and you just kind of like went in blindly, and the idea of doing it for money was frowned upon and seen as selling out. And that sort of changed with the advent of like the technological revolution, and all of a sudden money and science were so interconnected because you were able to monetize things in a way that you hadn't been before, that now that's why people will get into science a lot of the time, is because they believe that, well, if we found this advancement, imagine what we could make off that. And that the mentality around it has shifted a lot. And because of that, there's a tendency to rush into things because you're worried that your competitor has already found out the thing you've figured out.
Right.
And that they're already patenting it, or they're already building the park for it, or whatever. And I could see that being something like WestWorld. We don't know about competitors or other companies or whatever. But if there were to be, I could see that being a major concern.
Right. Well, there is a part in this episode that suggests, some type of espionage, even though we don't know who is behind it yet.
Yeah.
When Elsie finds the thing in
laser satellite uplink. Yeah.
In the woodcutter. Okay, but so the episode starts after we see Ford talking about the Greyhound with old Bill. It kind of cuts to Dolores, William, and Logan.
Right.
In this giant field of crosses.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, is this a graveyard? Like, they look too uniform and not enough space in between them to be like a graveyard. But whatever this is and why it's like that is, I think, a striking visual.
Yeah, I thought because they passed by some Union soldiers on the way in, and I figured that it was like their brethren outside of town that were buried there. You know what I mean? But yeah, I don't know. And where they're going is Pariah, which is a wretched hive of scum and villainy. And I never want to go anywhere like this very much.
As she's standing in the field, she has what we've been calling like a glitch. And she hears a voice and she sees herself.
Right.
And the voice
keeps doing that.
The voice says, "Find me."
And she says, "Show me how," right? Yeah. So here goes my other theory. And it's not even really a theory. It's just well, what if? What if Dolores is Arnold?
Like Arnold's consciousness in this Dolores host?
Yeah, somehow. And that he gave somebody a little bit of in 30 years, come wake me up. Do this thing.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? But I don't even know how that would work, or why it would work, or why you'd want to do that.
Well, that's an interesting theory because later on, we see Dolores and Ford, and it looks like maybe he's thinking the same thing.
Yo, Ford is... I mean, he's been intimidating this whole time, don't get me wrong, but in that particular scene, there's something about the combination of the power that he has and his desperation that he seems to have also that makes me really uncomfortable, and I do not care for it at all.
Super creepy. And he also, this is the first time we see Dolores I think it's the first time we see her. Well, no, we saw her with Stubbs early on, but this is her being treated not like she's Dolores and special, but because Ford has her with no clothes on, like he does with all of them, right?
Right.
And which is, I think, a little jarring because we don't usually see her just like any other host.
We did in the first. I feel like we have a couple times.
I think we saw her. I can't remember if she had clothes on when she was talking to Stubbs, but I think every other time we see her, she's just dressed talking to Bernard, right?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe I'm just thinking of the very first episode. Yeah. Okay.
And then he. Well, we'll get to their scene. Okay, so it starts with them outside of Pariah, and fucking Logan
I hate him so much. And I'm so happy at the turn that this took by the end, frankly. Like, yeah. He is just delighted by this awful place. Yeah. Which, you know, I guess, sure.
And William asked her if she's okay because he says he thought he heard her talking to someone.
Mm-hmm. Which I was like, oh, is she saying that shit out loud? I didn't think that was happening. And it turns out that she can, like, pick up on the things that they don't normally pick up on. The very thing that I had been saying, they're just talking about being robots right in front of them, and nobody seems to be registering what they're saying. Mm-hmm. And she is. Yeah. So at one point, William's like, yeah, this place, you know, you can be whatever you want, and nobody in the real world even knows about it. And she's like, what do you mean by that? And he's like,
it's like, you're not supposed to notice that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and she just is like, well, why wouldn't I? And he's like,
What did you think of Logan talking about the park and talking about the partner who, you know, basically it sounds like he's talking about what we know of Arnold.
Right. And he says that the pariah area is hemorrhaging money. Mm-hmm. Which I found, like, because the pariah area is where I'd think everybody would want to go. But it's also been referred to as an Easter egg. Mm-hmm. Like, that it is tough to find a way there. Because the park, I tend to forget this, but the park is huge. Mm-hmm. And you can't just wander around hoping to stumble upon a place.
Right.
Like, you can, but it's not efficient.
Right.
So you need to find a plot line that will bring you there. Mm-hmm. And I don't understand what they're hemorrhaging money on exactly. Like, I guess I could see it's much more like a violent area. So maybe it costs a lot more to upkeep all the hosts there because they're going down more often. But, like, if there's like a daily town massacre in Sweetwater.
Yeah. So
that can't be it. So I'm like, well, where is the money going? I don't understand why it would cost more there than anywhere else. Yeah, I don't know. And he says that they want to buy them out. Mm-hmm.
He says that whatever this company that his family runs, mm-hmm. They're considering buying the people who own the park out.
Yeah, it's just like a really weird. If they're hemorrhaging money, why wouldn't Ford just get that under control? Or is this Ford's baby? It doesn't feel like him, though. I don't know. And especially William looks around and says, well, whoever designed this, you can tell they don't think much of people.
So who does that sound like?
That sounds like Arnold, because he didn't like people and he preferred the hosts, according to Ford. Mm-hmm. So that's all I can think is that this is Arnold's, like, little pet project over here.
Right.
But why keep it open then? I don't know. Unless he did something in such a way that it cannot be closed. Which would be kind of rad. Like the twins leaving behind a swamp for Umbridge that she can't move.
Right. So they get into town and they meet El Lazo, who is Slim's boss, who is going to reward them mightily for saving Slim's life. And it turns out to be our friend Lawrence.
Yeah, and this actually happens after Lawrence is killed in the other area. And I was, like, so happy to see Alazzo because I liked Lawrence, and then he's dead. And I'm like, well, where's Lawrence now? I like that guy. And it turns out he's got a twin brother, because clearly that's what this is. There was probably 2 outlaw twin brothers who ran a con on everybody by looking alike, right? Right. Bet that's what it was. I don't know.
Right. So you're right. They meet El Lazo the next morning. Before that happens is when Dolores there's some kind of like Day of the Dead parade or something happening through town.
Yeah.
And she's watching everybody go by and she sees herself. Mm-hmm. And then she's
jumped in on that parade. listen, white lady, this is not for you. Get out of there.
She was already in there, though. What did you think when she saw herself walking in the parade?
Well, see, this is, and the thing with the lazo, I'm like, are there multiples of them? Is that, because it would make sense if they made multiples, because if we have a daily routine and loop for them, but then a customer takes them on a different plot, but you still need them to be home when they're, like, for their parents to not, like, for everything to be completed daily the way that it's supposed to be with the other loops.
But we've seen them replace characters with just different hosts, like they did with Abernathy.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So, I mean, you don't necessarily need a physical double. You just plop somebody else in the story.
So maybe, like, Pariah's just got a bunch of weird doubles for some reason. Like, maybe they're older models that Arnold, like, did something with. I don't know. Stop asking me all these questions.
So
we have to step back a little bit because we blew right past the whole thing with the Man in Black and Teddy, which happens long before the
that's right. So it cuts back to them, and this was well, I don't know what this was. What did you think this was?
So he's like, yeah, Teddy's going to lead me right to it. And Lawrence is like, is he? Because he looks a tiny bit dead. And Man in Black's like, motherfucker. And they pull this car right around. And this creepy ass little Omen kid pops up.
Oh, yeah, our friend. In his short
maybe
pants.
He's Arnold. Everybody's Arnold. Maybe that is what it is. Maybe everybody's a piece of Arnold. Maybe that's what it is.
The whole park is Arnold.
Yeah. He's like this giant presence everywhere. But this little kid creeps me the fuck out, and I do not care for him. He's like, ugh, I don't like it. And he's like, oh, go fill up this water thing. And Lawrence is like, why do you need him to fill that up? I just filled a saddlebag thing with water. What are you doing? And he's like, yeah, well, you know.
He just dumps
gonna need this bag, though. Slice. And just cuts his throat and hangs him up, drains him of blood. And then, like, fills Teddy with it. Somehow.
Yeah, we don't really get to see. Looks like just sort of a makeshift kind of IV kind of deal, but I don't know exactly.
And I know that this is something that you can do, but I do not understand it.
Like the transfusion on the field kind of deal?
Yeah.
I have to admit, I was like, why would that work on a host?
I mean, they're made of flesh and bone and everything the same way.
I guess.
But, and what I was thinking was like, well, you don't know that they have the same blood type, and he could reject it. And then I'm like, of course they have the same fucking blood type. What? Why would they do that?
I mean, we're not even 100%, well, whatever the substance is, because we talked earlier about, whether it's just made to look like blood.
Right.
But it works.
Mm-hmm.
And then he just leaves him hanging there, and he says, don't worry, somebody will be by shortly to collect him.
Takes his water, and the kid isn't even like, he doesn't even look scared. He just more looks like, the fuck?
Yeah, he looks like just kind of like, oh, dead guy's hanging from the tree.
Yeah.
And just kind of
like, that's interesting.
Yeah, basically that's interesting. But maybe not the most interesting thing I've seen today.
Yeah, which I'm like, does this kid frequent Pariah? Where the hell is he going that this isn't phasing him at all? Maybe he's Ford's eyeballs on the ground.
Yeah, like it makes you wonder where they are,
Yeah.
geography-wise in the park. Because when we first meet the little boy and Ford is out at the edge of his new narrative that he's building.
Mm-hmm.
And now we see the Man in Black bump into him on his way to Pariah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's hard to get an idea of where everything in the park is and how far everyone is from everyone else, Is he just an hour away? Is he a day away? Like, how much time is between he gets to where they are, you know?
Yeah.
Because it seems like they're heading to the same place. Like, we know they're heading to the same place.
Yeah, that's part of what threw me off, too, was how much faster Dolores' party arrives there.
Mm-hmm.
Because the Man in Black has been heading there for what feels like the whole show, practically.
Right.
So, yeah, but apparently this blood transfusion thing does work because Teddy wakes up and is able to, like, get up on a horse and keep going.
Yeah, he has to, like, say the magic word, though.
Yes.
He tells Teddy that Wyatt and them have kidnapped Dolores.
Yeah,
and,
because of course he has to say that.
And then when Teddy's like, you know, his eyes get all wide, like, they've got Dolores, and he's like, and there it is.
Yep.
Like, I know exactly.
I really liked that moment, too, because he's like, they've got Dolores, and he doesn't say yes. He just says, and there it is.
Yep, it's like, I know exactly what buttons to push to get you to do what I need you to do. You know? You're a game I've played before.
Yeah, pretty much. A foregone conclusion, sir.
And then it goes back to, like, headquarters, to, like, the butcher part with these two guys.
Oh my god.
Felix and his super creepy partner, whose name I cannot think of off the top of my head. I have to see if I can find it.
Yeah, these two, like, the tall one, this was probably the one episode, or the one scene in the episode, that took me out of the show, like, for the first time. Which was when he's working on the bird that he has swiped to try and fix it. And this dude tells him, you are a butcher, and that's all you will ever be. And I'm like, that line is the dumbest. Because just being like, that's all you'll ever be. Why? Why is that all he'll ever be? The guy's like 25 years old.
He says something later to him. Is it this scene, or is it the next time when they're together? When Elsie is, like, in the neighborhood, he says something about... Oh, it's when they're looking over Maeve's body, and the tall one, his name's Sylvester, like, bangs on the table, and Felix jumps, and he says something about, I don't know how you got this job. They should have figured that out in embryo, or in utero or something.
No, it's an embryo, I'm pretty sure, because that struck me.
What did you think of that?
Like, all I could think was that they, like, help grow the hosts somehow, but we've seen them being constructed. So then there's like, well, are the butchers also hosts? And then they decide which hosts help butcher other hosts, which, if that is the case, that would make a lot of sense because they're very... It's drudge work, apparently. And having hosts do drudge work seems to be pretty par for the course. At the same time...
But for him to say something like that, that would mean they were self-aware.
Right. And why would you do that to... there were a couple different ways that my brain went, and none of them really seemed to make sense in the end. I was like, is it a training stage? You know, do they have different, like, stages in getting to work for this company in the first place, and they assess what you're suited to? And one of the, like, training levels is embryo, where you, like, work with the brand new ones that don't have any, like, programming yet or something like that. I don't know. But yeah, if it's the case that, like, they're hosts, then saying that's all you'll ever be would make sense. But then why would he have the desire to move up and do something else? Why would they put that there?
Right.
So
lots of questions.
I
also want to mention that before Dolores has, at night, before she passes out, she has another flashback or glitch or vision of all the bodies being on the ground, and she's just sort of standing around looking around. But but it's really quick. It just comes and then it goes.
Yeah. I don't like her glitches. They are very, what's the word? They're just upsetting.
Yeah, I find...
It's the kind of thing where it's like she's trying to remember, and I'm like, why do you want to?
Yeah.
Whatever that shit wasn't good. Just leave it there, seriously.
And it seems like something is prodding her to remember, which you feel like, well, that seems like a terrible idea. Why would you want her to remember anything of this life?
Yeah.
Like a gift to her is, that's what they said in the earlier episode, like it's a gift that they, don't remember anything.
Yeah. Yeah, she, and I don't know, like, I keep on bringing up Dark Tower, too, because of the Western theme, but her standing in the midst of all those bodies is a very, like, gunslinger kind of moment. In the very first book, he's in Tull, and let's just say there are many bodies by the end of that. And it makes me go, did she do that? Is she the one?
That was going to ask you, what does that in the gunslinger, who is usually the person left standing? Is that like the person who's shot everybody down? Or is it somebody who rolls up on the scene afterwards?
That's like, she's apparently got some aptitude with that gun, as we see later.
That was surprising.
She had.
Right?
Yeah.
Like we saw Teddy get leveled up, but I don't recall us seeing her getting an upgrade. And
what do you mean we saw Teddy?
Remember when when Ford gave Teddy the Wyatt backstory?
Oh, okay. So level up, you just mean like
an upgrade or whatever, just kind of turned
his plot line.
Yeah, turned into a badass.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And we don't see anything like that with her. She's just got a gun in her hand, and then we're jumping ahead again, but then everybody is on the ground. So when she glitches in Pariah and she faints in the crowd, that's when she wakes up with Ford. Like the scene cuts to her sitting and talking to Ford.
Yeah. I'm just noticing now that there's an argument between William and Logan, and they're standing in front of a fountain, and I think the fountain's filled with wine, but it looks like blood. It's just like... It's pretty, like, this town, just, the number of people just wandering around naked, too.
They're all painted in gold.
Well, there's some painted in gold, and then there's one woman at one point who's just running, and I mean running. She's running in the background, and she's just got a corset on. But she has no panties or anything. She's just got her, like, top half covered, which looks super weird to me. She's like Porky Pig. But yeah, that like, and this like masked ceremony, it feels almost like it's like meant to disorient her somehow. Like, I don't know, and Ford's voice is the one that puts her down, like, eternal slumber thing. Is he behind one of the masks? How did she hear him? He's able to give orders, we've seen, by barely doing anything. So is there like a mental link there that he has with like all of the hosts that he can instruct them on what to do without even having to be there? Which, if that's the case, I hate it. That's too much power, and he should not have it. Yeah.
I don't know.
I hate you. You're getting like Miles over here. He can be insufferable with Dark Tower. He'll just be like, I have no idea. No clue.
So the conversation with Ford, we have already correctly noted how creepy it is. He is asking her whether she's happy in her little loop, and then starts asking some very pointed questions about Arnold. When is the last time you talked to him? And it's been the appropriate amount of time. Excuse me. Like 34 years and 7 days and whatever.
Yeah.
And then he's she says, were we friends?
Oh, yeah.
He's like, no, I wouldn't call us friends.
I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that at all.
And that doesn't sound good.
No, it does not.
That sounds kind of like the opposite, sir.
Yeah, it sounds like she was probably Arnold's pet, and Ford did not approve of her. For some reason. Maybe Arnold fell in love with his own creation, Pygmalion style.
That's a thing that happens.
Yep.
And he does the thing, too, where he grabs her hand, and she's like, you're hurting me, which is so unnecessary because he already has all the power. That's something you do to, you know what I mean? It's just a weird thing, I think.
The way that he does it, and then when she's like, you're hurting me, and then he immediately goes, analysis. Almost like he's hoping that the pain will trigger a different response than if he had just asked for analysis without stimulating her somehow. You know,
Interesting.
like...
He's trying to trick her or something.
Almost, yeah. Like, maybe he's, there's that scene in Sherlock where he's questioning a woman and he asks her... either you're an idiot or you lying. Which one is it? And she's like, I didn't do that. I swear. And he's like, I'm sorry. You're going to have to give her a bag to breathe into. I just needed her to tell the truth, and putting someone under pressure is the way to do it. So I'm wondering if he was like, but like, that's a really human thing to try on a host. So that makes me go, okay, Ford, if that's what you're doing, then you think that she's got some capabilities beyond what the other hosts seem to have.
Right. And he asks her if she's hearing voices. And she says no.
She says no. And as soon as he leaves, she's like, I didn't tell him anything. And I'm like, well, you did just say that shit out loud, though. Maybe don't do that when he's like just 10 feet outside the door. Just.
Yeah. So.
Stop it.
You know, it looks like she lied right to his face, which you would think wouldn't be possible.
Yeah, I wouldn't think that would be something that you're allowed.
Or, you know, could even manage, you know.
Yeah.
But, I don't know, we just watched it happen.
Yeah, she's overriding all kinds of programming here, left and right, it feels like.
So from there, I think it goes back to
it goes to the meeting with, what's-his-face, and the boys... and Dolores.
With El Lazo?
El Lazo, yeah.
Okay.
And Logan trying to act slick and getting decked in the face.
I kind of enjoyed that.
Same. And Dolores seems to associate El Lazo with something. Because he says, I don't even remember exactly what the line is, but it seems like in response to that line... she steps forward and is like, so you're seeking something and so am I, and I think we could help each other. She, and
I don't think he says, I'm trying to think, what does he say?
I'm trying to navigate on this is a little bit like on, what do you call it? It's easier, Amazon. But on HBO, they do not make it, oh, here, I almost got it. I didn't go back quite far enough. Okay, here it is. He says, you need to sweeten the pot. And Alazo says, perhaps I can sweeten the pot by killing you quickly. And that's when the whispering starts. And she sees the church and whatnot. And then she walks up to him and says, you're seeking something, aren't you?
And then she doesn't seem like... I mean, after it's over, she kind of seems, I don't know, like... she didn't realize she was saying or doing anything.
Yeah. There's a definite, like, change to her eyes and her posture that makes it seem like when she was saying that to him, it was not her.
Right.
So, yeah. Or maybe she has a piece of Arnold's brain and she's, like, being brought to this maze to put the piece together with the other pieces. Maybe Maeve has another piece.
Multiple.
Maeve doesn't seem to be being directed to this maze, though. So I don't know if that's even anything.
Maeve seems to have her own agenda.
Yeah.
Which I love the way the episode ends because I can't wait to like get into all that. But okay, so the thing with El Lazo is Logan wants to be hooked up with the Confederados because they're trash, and Logan is attracted to that. Mm-hmm. And he wants to get to this war game that's supposed to be happening on the outskirts of the park.
Right.
And El Lazo needs to pull off a heist of nitrogen to give to the Confederados, and that's going to be the introduction for Logan and them. Which all sounds like nonsense.
It's very video game. You know, like, do this thing for me, and then maybe we can make a trade. And this shit goes sideways, like, almost immediately. All because of Logan being a top-notch, grade A scumbag.
Yeah.
He's so... he just cannot... It's amazing that he can simultaneously sort of make fun of William for, like, being affected by these hosts and seeing them as people. Mm-hmm. And yet he can't help but, like, take out his petty revenge on the driver, who's, like, also just a host and performing a script.
Right.
Like, it's fine for him to be petty and small and shitty. And it's just the toxic masculinity thing. Yeah. You know? Anger is the only acceptable emotion. Yeah,
he can get all the pleasure out of behaving badly in this world, and that seems okay and in line. But William getting any pleasure out of being, like, decent is, you know, stupid and weak, and you're not having as much fun as you should be having.
Yep.
And so they have the heist. They end up killing everybody, and
everybody.
William has to kill a couple of unarmed men that are threatening Dolores. Mm-hmm. And Logan is getting choked to death.
Just should have let that shit happen.
Kinda shoulda.
And when he saves Logan, there is a vibe that I got the first time, and once we see the way that goes down in the end, I was like, yeah, I think that's what that was. Where he's like, I'm gonna save you, but I don't have to. Mm-hmm. Like, there's definitely a feeling of, I don't want to say it's outright hesitating, but it's deliberate in such a way that it feels like it's definitely entered his head that maybe he shouldn't help him, you know? And it's really something because, like, they don't need to kill, like, this guy's gonna wrestle Logan till the cows come home. He can't kill him. Mm-hmm. So why then, but just because the guy raises a gun to Dolores. The other dude is still standing there with his hands up, and he turns and shoots him anyway.
Yep.
But I wouldn't want my back to that guy either. Mm-hmm. He doesn't have a weapon, but he's on their side.
Exactly.
He's behind me.
And it doesn't take him any time to make that decision, to your point.
Nope.
You know. So, William catching feelings? Yeah? No?
Mm-hmm. 100%, and he looks very uncomfortable with it. Yep. And Logan is just so gross and excited about how, oh, yay, you killed everybody. Look at you. This is awesome. Oh, that guy died. Whoops. Guess we're going to have to bring his body back. And Dolores is horrified because they promised them that they weren't going to hurt him.
Yeah.
If they just followed, you know?
Yeah, she seems like she's really taken aback and upset that they didn't keep their word. And she even says something earlier, too, when they're riding up on the caravan about how she doesn't even have to know how to use it because she's not going to hurt anybody because her dad was a Union soldier.
Right.
Which I had forgotten about.
Yeah, this whole, like, Confederate Union soldier thing was not something that I even, like, considered factoring into this world at all. Mm-hmm. But we did see we saw them recruiting, didn't we?
Yeah.
Water, like during one of the intro scenes?
Yeah, at the beginning of the series, the recruitment was to go look after bandits, and then later it was to join the cause. Though
Right.
this is, I guess, after the war, because Dolores says in this episode that they're, these Confederados are people who refuse to admit that they lost.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know why they would be actively still recruiting for the Union, but we did see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, they get the nitro, and they bring it back, and Alazzo has his little parlay with this fucking
Mountain Man.
gopher man. You're giving him way more credit
Am
than I
I?
am. He looks like a beaver. Like his
gosh.
face, like with his teeth and but like a wet, I'm about to say a wet beaver.
No,
you know
don't
what?
say it.
I take it all
Don't
back.
say it.
Reavers. You know what? He looks like a gopher. A wet gopher. That's what.
That's better.
Sweaty and disgusting.
That's much better.
I hate it. So Alazzo, he's like, we're going to send those cactus eaters, which I'm just like, really? Every time I hear a new slur, it's almost funny because she's just like, where'd you get that one? Back to where they came from. And Alazzo had proclaimed earlier that it's all business and whatever.
Right.
But you can see on his face that is not the case at all.
Yeah.
He hates this man.
And so he's just like, well, why don't you take a night, and celebrate your victory, and your men need rest and all that.
Yeah.
And that turns out to just be a clever ruse.
There goes a phrase that needs to be used daily a little bit more often. It was but a clever ruse. Yeah, what he's doing is taking the nitro, pouring it into his friend's corpse, which he seems to really regret that his friend died, but also seems to be unsurprised.
Yeah, and absolutely willing to take advantage of this opportunity that has presented itself, because it's a pretty ingenious way to smuggle nitro.
Yeah, it is.
And they're just going to fill the bottles with tequila. And this is a plan that would have worked if these dumb fucks weren't playing, keep away with bottles of nitro.
When I saw them doing that, I was just like, of course. Of course. It's such an idiotic thing. But we also have Tide taking their Tide Pods off the market because people kept eating them.
Yeah.
So people are idiots.
Exactly. So it tracks.
And yeah, it completely makes sense. There was a guy who died a couple years ago because he lit a firecracker while it was sitting on the top of his head.
Oh my God.
And, I'm not trying to say he deserved to die, but maybe he kind of deserved it. A little bit, if you're going to light a firecracker that's sitting on your head. There just comes a point, if that guy had blown up from nitro, how many of them, how volatile is it? If there's a crowd
of people laughing and cheering them on and watching, and Logan is one of those people by the by.
Yeah.
So,
I guess he figures that he's not going to get hurt.
I guess. But this is the raw part of the park, Yeah. he might not die, but he could have got
and beaten.
He could have got 3rd-degree burns.
Something.
But that happens a little bit later. So then we go, I think this is when we go see Elsie working in the lab.
Yeah.
And she sees them take the body. Okay, first of all, she's working with somebody who can't pour water in the glass.
Bart.
Yeah, Bart. And I'm pretty sure she makes a dick joke here, right? This is a dick joke?
Yeah, she does. Well, the way the camera is at first, you don't see his dick at all. And then the camera wheels around this other way, and my jaw almost hit the fucking ground because that shit is enormous.
Wait, do they actually show his dick?
Are you kidding? Do they show it? Lady, I'm about to take a screenshot right the fuck now because that thing is monstrous. Hold on.
No, I'm watching it now.
Do you see it when the camera goes to the side?
Yeah.
And he's putting the bottle back down?
All right, hang on.
I can't believe that you didn't notice this. I couldn't.
Oh my God! Yeah, I don't know.
Thing.
I don't know how I didn't see that. Jesus Christ! I never.
Yeah.
I never even paid attention.
I don't know if that's real or not, but if I was dating a dude and he whipped that out, I'd be like, you know what? I gotta go. I'm not ready for that kind of a commitment. That's more than I am prepared for at the moment. It's like it looks like it's probably 5 inches around at the base.
Okay, that's enough of this. We can just.
That's what I'm saying. I don't know if it's real or not. I can't decide. But, yeah. And I felt a little guilty for fixating on it because when the camera pulls back, you realize that he's a black guy.
Well, that's all that I was thinking. That's why I was like, I'm pretty sure that's a dick joke, right? I didn't realize they were like, no, we're not being ambiguous about it at all. This is totally a dick joke. But she sees the woodsman get carted by.
With his deflated soccer ball of a face.
Oh my God, it's horrible.
Doesn't that look like some
It looks like
poor...
Like, you know, sometimes you walk by a basketball court and there'll be like a beat up, empty half, like you said. Just like rolling around. It's all muddy and shit because it's been out there for weeks. And it's
in the gutter and it got ran over.
Oh, it's terrible. And she tells this kid she needs a few minutes alone. And this kid thinks he has the nerve to say no.
I don't know how he has the nerve because she has already shown him the video that she's got. And he's still trying to say, I need this job. I'm like, do you see what she just did?
If you needed this job, you wouldn't be behaving like this, sir.
No.
And, you know, it's funny, too, because there was a scene, I think, earlier with the other two techs, with Felix and Sylvester. And when it's their lunch break, Sylvester says he's going because he has a ham sandwich and a date with a VR, a redheaded VR.
Yep.
Which makes me think that there are, I mean, I don't know, Sylvester's super creepy, so maybe he's doing the same exact thing. But it sounded like, because he says...
They've got a break room.
Yeah, right? And so the fact that they have that, and this guy is still, like, fucking cadavers, basically, in the morgue, is just super gross.
Yeah.
And he was fucking like a rabbit, too.
Oh my God, he was so happy about it. Like... The sound effect was really disturbing, to be honest. You just hear him like, ha, 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 ha. I'm like, I don't need this, please, thanks. Especially after just having seen a giant penis in my face, and then we go to this. Yeah. And I'm like, you're really giving me some whiplash here in mixed messages show. I can't decide how to feel right now.
Oh, shit. So this is where she finds the weird wire thing in the woodsman.
Yeah.
And it's quite a discovery.
That was really like unnerving. And when she does discover it and she takes it to Bernard, we had talked last week about how Bernard gave her wrong information, but it turns out he gave her right information.
Yeah, I guess so. I thought
he
about
got it backward.
When I was watching it, I was like, but I read that right off of Wikipedia, so I guess I can't trust them.
Yeah. Because he tells her it has 4, not 3. Mm-hmm. But when she goes to see him, she's like, oh, you're right. It has 3, not 4. And I'm like, oh, is that what he said? But is she notices this because his hands are sticking out, right? Because the base of it is in like the very, very edge of his palm.
Yeah, it's like,
and she lifts the flesh up and sees it.
Yeah, yep. And she's like looking at first at his fingernails and stuff. I don't know what she was looking for exactly, but then she sees it and just follows it. And what did you think of this interaction with her when she's telling Bernard?
I don't know, like, because when she brings that in to show him, there is something weird about how controlled his reaction is.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he doesn't seem as worried about this as she does.
Right.
And that's what's making me go, like, Bernard, this isn't you, is it? I don't know what to think about Bernard, though. I don't know what his motivations are in any sense. So, yeah. I got nothing.
And he doesn't really have any lines in response. It's just kind of like his body language and his face. And then
he's just staring at her.
And then the scene is over, and they go back to Pariah, and it's just, all orgy all the time.
Yeah, it's just seen straight out of Penny Dreadful.
Yeah, it kind of is. It's, and they're sitting around talking, and, well, I'll let you. What did you think of all this?
First of all, I can't stop laughing at the way the gold women are walking around. Because the way they walk is, I think like they were probably told, walk like you're on a catwalk. But it looks absurd. Like, it really shows your age, I think, as a viewer, when a scene like this is not titillating and instead seems utterly ridiculous. Like, there are tons of beautiful people, stark naked, doing all kinds of depraved shit, and I'm just looking at them going, like, I would walk into this place and wander around, like, giggling, like I was, like, 12 years old, but would not have any of that 12-year-old reaction of, like, desire or curiosity. It would just be, like, total detachment. And I feel like that's the show, like, that's what they're purposefully doing, is trying to, like, be like, look at this, and doesn't it look kind of unappealing, though?
Mm-hmm.
You know? And Alonzo is filling that guy's glass, and he's like, there's a place in glory for a brown man who knows his place.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, the look that he gets on his face. Like, he has to hold that shit inside.
Yeah, like he could just fucking stab him in the throat right now.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have the confrontation with William and Logan. And it's pretty, it's pretty harsh.
It really is. It's like the sort of like worst fears conversation that you're afraid you're going to have with somebody in your life. And it never quite happens probably for most of us, but you dance around conversations like this.
Right.
And maybe it does finally happen if one of you's drunk or
So
something.
what do you really think of me conversation?
Mm-hmm.
Nobody wants to have that conversation. And oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, and Logan is so arrogant and so mean girly.
Yeah, it's very mean-spirited.
He's just him picking a guy to, like, be his sidekick at work, basically.
Yeah, and it kind of is whipping boy. And
that he knows is absolutely no threat to him. It's like that concept in high school of, like, the pretty girl having uglier friends to, like, make herself look better.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, not that I don't know that that's a real thing, because, often there's just going to be one girl that's the prettiest, and whether she picked her friends because they're less pretty than her, I don't think that's probably really a thing.
Yeah, I don't know if it's I don't know if it's a thing. I know that idea is a thing.
Right.
And Logan also says not only is that why he picked him, but it's probably why his sister picked him as well, which is really low.
Really mean.
So they have this moment, and then William turns around, and Dolores is gone.
Yeah, because she has some weird shit to go do.
She had an appointment with some weird shit.
Yes, she did.
It's weird shit o'clock.
You know what? That is exactly what it is. Yeah, she's walking down this hallway. It's basically like a menagerie of fucking. Mm-hmm. And
behind each door, there's worse delights.
Right. What kind of cracked me up was that the the opening of this show, the opening sequence, I didn't register until like the second time I watched it, the second episode, or that there are robots having sex in the opening credits.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just cracking up, like, how somebody's like, oh yeah, we've got to put fucking robots in the opening. And they're like, well, of course we're going to have robots in the opening. No, we have to put fucking robots in the opening. Oh, yeah, all right, we can do that. Just, all right, sure, guys. And it's a really weird thing, the way that there's, you know, it's only like their skeletons and some of their tissue. Mm-hmm. And so it's very unclear if it's rape or if it's consensual, like, because you can't see expressions or like detailed movement. Mm-hmm. So the whole thing feels really like detached and clinical. Like, yes, this is a thing that is happening with no context at all. Right. Which kind of like makes me uncomfortable. I don't like it. So this is just that, like, extra. And she walks into this like fortune teller's room, this woman who's wearing this big hood and has piles of skulls mm-hmm. behind her. And the woman holds out some tarot cards for her to choose from. And she turns the maze card over, which is not a thing.
I was going to say, who even knew there was such a card?
There is no such card. And when she looks up,
it's her.
It's herself.
It's herself. What? And
she says, "What's wrong with me?" And her other self says, "Perhaps you are unraveling." Mm-hmm. And then we get the worst thing that's ever happened on film, which is her. I can't even watch this right now. It's happening, and I'm fast forwarding away from it. Can't do it. Can't do it, everybody. Where she yanks this like fishing line type of wire mm-hmm. out through like an inch of flesh.
Yes, it's her in her prairie dress, and then her in her like whatever her getup is that she's wearing in Pariah, and she pulls this thing out of her arm, and it's horrifying. And then it is gone. There's no gaping wound, and not only is the other her gone, but the fortune teller is also gone.
Yes. I have to share this with you because when this happened, it reminded me of this Onion article, and I just sent it via text message to you. For those listening, the headline reads, "Man pulling on loose hangnail slowly unravels skin from entire body." And it's just a graphic of this guy pulling this strip of flesh off his hand, and it's the worst. And that's exactly what this looks like.
It is. It looks just like that.
I can't handle it. I've seen that 3 times now, and it doesn't get any easier.
Oh God!
And then she looks down, and she's back to normal, mm-hmm. and the woman's gone, and I'm just like, well, all right.
And so she comes running out, and this is when she happens to just catch what Alazzo is doing. Mm-hmm. And she realizes that the jig is up and they have got to get out of Dodge.
Yep. Which, it didn't even occur to me at that point that they needed to run, because I thought it was going to be Alazzo that got blamed, not them. Because I thought that this dumbass Confederate dude would know that guy probably hates me.
They never think that. No, they never think that.
Apparently not. So yeah,
he probably tells people he has a Mexican friend. Like people are like, Confederado, you're racist, and he goes, "No, I'm not racist. I'm friends with Alazzo."
Oh my God, you're probably right. Oh God. So Dolores goes up to William and tells him and is like, "We need to go." And he's like, "Oh, sure. a sense of danger and urgency to strip us down
Yeah.
to something raw,
Yeah.
and I'm not doing this anymore.
Yeah, he doesn't want to play this game at all anymore. He is over it. He's over
Yep.
William. He's over all this bullshit. It's fake. It doesn't mean anything, and I want to go home.
Yep.
And then
she kisses him.
I was getting ready to say, not only does she kiss him, but she says, like, I need you.
Yep.
Which I think is even more important than the kiss.
Yeah, I think you're right. Because he wasn't about to let anybody kiss him.
Yeah.
And now, all of a sudden, he's kissing her back
Mm-hmm.
with enthusiasm.
And everything just goes to shit right at this moment. Because this is when they drop the fucking bottle. They realize that they've been had. They fucking grip Logan up like nobody's business.
I really wonder what they're going to do with Logan. Like, because I feel like if this were a different sort of situation, we would be seeing the control room going, somebody's just gotten the shit kicked out of him in Pariah, but we're not seeing that. So I'm like, is this just kind of not being
like just completely off the radar?
You know, it feels that way.
I mean, and you know what did you think of Logan's face? Because they're beating the shit out of him. He asked William to help him. And
William just says no, runs off, and Logan like smiles.
Yes! I didn't know if you would see it, but yeah, he smiles.
Yep.
Because I think
there's a moment of pure rage and then the smile.
Yeah. Yeah.
I couldn't tell, like, is it a smile of like, well, look at that motherfucker finally growing some balls? Or is it, oh, I am going to get you later, you son of a bitch?
I think it's a little bit of both. And I think he is being like, oh, he's finally doing it. He's like finally, he's getting into the game and he's finally showing me who I thought he was. You know, like, because remember at the beginning of the series, he said all that shit on a train about how I think there's someone else. Like, I basically think you're full of shit. And you've been pretending to be, you know, this noble guy. Yeah. I think it's a little bit of that, too.
Yeah. I'm wondering about him. What the hell's going to happen to you, Logan? Because, like, I don't like him, and I don't really give a shit if he makes it out here. I know he has to because he's a guest, supposedly, but I don't care if he does. But also, I don't really know what the options are here anymore.
And this part of the park, like you just said, this whole thing with William and Logan and Dolores and Pariah seems like nobody's watching. You know,
it's just like it really feels different than the rest of the park.
It does, and does it feel like it feels different? But what about it feels different? Other than it doesn't seem to be supervised as much.
It's just like everybody there feels like it feels like there's more actual motivation to things. Like, I would not be surprised if they show up there several days in a row and it's totally different every day. That people aren't on a loop the way that they are in other towns.
Okay.
You know? But I don't know. Maybe they have a Day of the Dead march every day. Maybe they do. I don't know.
So William and Dolores make a run for it. They jump on the train. And surprise.
Yep. Yeah, here he is. And he's like, tries to have the standoff. And then Dolores is like, oh, we going to play this game? I know what's in this fucking box. And he puts his hands up and is like, fine, okay, guess you got me. And they walk over, and the coffin has the maze stamped on the top. And she looks at it and stands there and kind of spaces out and goes, I'm coming. And the camera whirls to where they'd been sitting, and they're not there.
What do you think of that?
Like, I don't know. It's almost like it's almost like this is two different instances being edited together to make it look like they're happening at the same time. Like, this whole thing with her and William and Alonzo happened at another point. And now, when she's alone, is her, like, recompleting that storyline alone. And just remembering completing it the first time.
Oh, okay.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It's really weird. Or maybe it's just symbolic. And maybe it's just that, like, nobody else matters to her and that she's totally in her head.
Well, she has that great line after she shoots the Confederados. And William is like, how did you do that? And she says, I imagined a story where I wasn't the damsel. Mm-hmm. Which I thought was a really good line.
Yeah.
It doesn't explain how she was able to take down 6 men in 2 seconds, but still, it's a good line.
Yeah, she turned into a machine gun for a second there.
And her face, too. Like,
I can't handle her fucking face, man. Listen, and I know I said it last episode, but it was just, I keep thinking that I'm, like, used to what she can do, and then she does it again, and I'm like, my blood runs cold again. Yeah. When she gets that look, she looks like a Terminator. Yeah. She is terrifying.
Yep.
And that's a really, like, getting your expression to change just a tiny bit, and you change enough that you are scaring me now. Yeah. Like, you can't, that's not an easy, most actors cannot do that. Yeah. Most actors, when they try and put on the scariness, I'm just like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, it looks a little ridiculous, right?
You know, yeah.
But she nails it.
It's like somebody let all the blood out of her. She's ice cold. And just, it's like she's turned into a straight calculator.
And the fact that we keep seeing her switch back and forth, I think, is amazing. Because when she's doing the other, more softer rancher's daughter bit, I find that to be completely believable, too. Yeah, she just kills this role. She really does.
I remember one time I was talking with Owen, and he asked me what was one of the most brutal ways I ever dumped somebody. And there was a guy that I had been dating when I was like 19 or 20. And he did something, I don't even remember. And I just said, I am done with you. And I was repeating it to Owen. And when I did, I was really remembering how I felt when I said it. And I guess that I had a face change because when I looked over at him, he was like a little pale, and he was like, that was actually really scary, and I did not like that, and I hope I'm never on the receiving end of that. And I was like, yeah, you know what? I felt a little scary. Because I just remembered in that moment when I said that to that dude, I was like 2 steps away from just decking him in the face. Like, I was so angry. And that's like that look that she gets there, that moment where you're like, I am detached to this degree right now that I could go either way. I could either walk away and be cool and just move on to the next thing, or I could murder your ass. You choose. Which one's it going to be today, you know? And that's where I feel like what's so scary about her is that it's cold, but it's on the this knife's edge.
Yeah, it could go either way. It really could go either fucking way. So...
Can't handle her face.
We leave them on the train and we go to the Man in Black and Teddy walking into a bar. And they're just going to have some whiskey. And they don't want any company. But they get company.
They sure do. I feel really bad for Teddy in this scene because he has nothing to contribute. The only thing that he does is sacrifice his poor hand to save this dumbass.
So, what did you think of these two sharing a table and a shot of whiskey?
Listen, any moment that I get to see the Man in Black look really unnerved and nervous is really welcome. Because he's so in control all the time. Even when things aren't quite going his way or when he doesn't understand, he's still like under control. And this moment, when Ford sits down with him, he really looks for a second like, oh, I don't want this right now. Yeah. Please.
But it's weird because he knows who he is immediately. The man in black knows who this is. And calls him by his first fucking name.
Yeah, and the man in black says that he added a true villain to the story.
Yeah, something he felt that was always lacking.
But then Ford is like, well, you are a villain, and that's certainly beyond doubt.
He says something like, you've done things that I couldn't even imagine, or something like that.
Yeah, I couldn't even conceive of a man like you.
Yeah, which is quite a statement. I mean, come on.
But then he says, the urgency, however, doesn't really fit the character. It betrays a certain anxiety.
What do you think that's about?
And the man in black looks really irritated.
Yes, he does.
He doesn't like that Ford has picked up on something like this. And I think maybe he's dying or something.
Okay.
And he's like, I just need to get here before I, like... And he seems healthy, but
right.
What do I know? Maybe he's got an artificial heart with a timer on it. Maybe it's like that Justin Timberlake movie where they have minutes that they can buy.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Well, he says something about the outside world here. When he's talking, he's talking to Teddy, but he's really not.
Right.
And he says people come here because they have everything they need. It's something like pigs on a teat or something like that, he says. And people come to the park for purpose, to find like a deeper meaning.
Right.
And then at one point, Ford is like, well, ask me, what deeper meaning?
Ask me. Yeah, I liked that a lot.
And he's like, no, the man I would need a shovel for. Like, you're not the one who has answers for me. I want to talk to Arnold.
Which that is probably super insulting to Ford.
I feel like, right? I feel like that was a little bit of a shot back. Like, you got me with the urgency and desperation, but I got something for you too.
And that's part of what I feel like, because we talked about, the change in what your focus would be from starting to do this when you're young to then aging and watching the tech grow and change. And then you reach a point where I think this is as far as we can go. And I can't help but wonder if now Ford is starting to catch up to Arnold's way of thinking and curiosity and whatnot. And he's pissy that he's like so far behind. Decades behind, literally, at this point. And that there are people who are coming to the park for his partner's piece of it that hasn't been around for 30 years.
Right.
And they're still coming because of that. Like, but that probably infuriates him. I would be so mad.
There was a part with Teddy in the woods with Lawrence and the man in black that we didn't talk about, where the man in black says something about how he had once opened one of them up.
Oh, right, yeah.
And looked inside. And it was all, what did he say? Like all pieces.
All perfect pieces.
Yeah. And then they ruined you to make you more human because it was cheaper.
Right. Which, that makes sense. But also, like, I don't know we don't know anything about how they behaved before and what the difference is. I'm not clear on why he thinks that was superior and this is like a downgrade. I don't know.
Teddy didn't know either.
Poor Teddy. Poor fucking Teddy. This guy, even when he's given a really interesting storyline, he's just still just along for the ride.
Yeah, that's
dragged behind.
That's pretty much, it seems to be his whole kind of deal, right? It's super sad. Yeah, and like the whole idea of trying to find
a deeper meaning. Why is he so sure?
Mm-hmm.
Did he know Arnold? Like, and I feel like there was something else that Ford says implying that he was part of founding the park or the money behind it or something like that. I don't even remember what it was. I'm trying to watch this to see. But they definitely clearly have like a history,
Mm-hmm.
but from the way they talk to each other, it doesn't seem like they're certainly not friends, and it doesn't seem like they knew each other very well. And then he fucking pulls his knife out and says, I wonder what I would find if I were to open you up. And I'm like, yes, sir, I also wonder this. Because I've been saying, he's a fucking host, man. You don't know. But if you did open him up, they all look like parts inside, like regular parts.
It seems
so
like
you probably
it.
wouldn't be able to tell.
Right? You'd have to, like, cut top of his head off, I guess. Which the Man in Black is not against doing. We've already learned.
Oh, for sure.
I feel like that's probably exactly what he would do.
Yeah, I'm just the eagerness with which he's like looking to cut him open. And I don't mean like he really, really wants to,
right.
But he clearly would like to hurt this guy. Right. I feel like
it's weird that he even, because he knows that Teddy is gonna, like, he knows that's gonna happen. Do you think?
Teddy knows.
No, not that Teddy knows, that the Man in Black knows. Does he did he seem surprised to you when Teddy grips the knife up?
Oh no.
Right?
I think he just wanted to fuck with him a little bit. Yeah. Yeah, and like everything had gone silent by then, and then Ford gets up and leaves, and that player piano starts off again with this like horribly discordant tune that's like pure headache music.
It was Ford playing it when the scene starts, and then he leaves, and it just plays itself. Which you're just like, okay, show, alrighty,
right.
And then from there we go back to the lab with Felix and his bird.
Oh, Felix.
Now, did you notice throughout the episode that Maeve kept ending up here?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because I did, like, the first time when he's like, oh, it's her again, I didn't even realize that they'd taken her out and brought her back. Like, that time I was just like, why is he acting all weird about it? And then on the second viewing, I was like, oh, because they rolled her out earlier, and then she's, like, back with an injury again. And then,
it's the same injury. It's he pulled the bullet out of her, like, twice.
Yep. Which I'm like, I don't even know how she could do... Like, does she keep getting shot? Like, how? I don't know. But he's working on this bird. It's pretty adorable.
It is. He's so excited. It's flying around the room, and he's finally, like, cracked the code. And he's got all this joy on his face.
I just really, that moment. It's so sweet. And then he pisses his pants because Maeve has held her hand out, and the little bird just comes and flutters down onto her finger like she's a fucking Disney princess. And she's like, it's time you and I had a chat. Yeah. And he looks like he might throw up.
Yeah. Yeah. He has completely shit his pants and is probably going to be weak in the knees. What do you think she wants to chat about?
I would guess, what are you, Shade? Why are you pulling my strings? What's that bullet? What's this place? Why'd you have a room full of corpses you were showering with water? Why do you have a bird that you're tapping into with a bit of keyboard?
Why don't I have clothes on?
What a keyboard is, right? Why do I keep getting brought here every time I get injured? What do you mean you put me in sleep mode? How come I keep having nightmares about being scalped by some weird dude? It's very cold. Can I please get a jacket or something? I would guess.
She has a lot of questions.
Yes. In short, many questions.
All right. So let's recap where your crazy theories are.
Okay.
Everybody is Arnold.
Everybody's Arnold.
But nobody is Arnold.
Except for Ford.
Except Ford, okay.
But it's possible that Bernard is. It's possible that pretty much only Bernard out of the non-hosts. Bernard's the only one that I'm like, yeah, maybe that's an Arnold.
I like that. That's an Arnold.
Maybe that's one of them. There's an army of Arnolds.
Is it Arnai? Is that like the plural of Arnold?
I was gonna say Arnett. It's like a group of Arnolds is an Arnett. Yeah, and I don't know, like, what I don't get what the Man in Black just like. Maybe he's Arnold's son.
Oh,
what about that? Because he's older, but he's not as old as fucking Anthony Hopkins.
Fair. Okay, I'll give you that.
How old is Anthony Hopkins?
Girl, I don't know.
Like 78? I'm
At
looking
least.
That up.
Maybe even like 80 or 81.
And tell me what the name of this episode means again.
Oh, I have to hold on.
He's 80 years old.
Yeah, okay.
His birthday is December 31st.
Oh.
Damn, right on the end of the year.
So I just took a quick screenshot so I can only read what I have, but it's suffer the opposite. Contrapasso refers to the punishment of souls by a process either resembling or contrasting with the sin itself.
So if we're taking that in mind, it would be kind of perfect for Ford's punishment to be... What if Ford killed Arnold?
Listen to what this says. It says, in the 8th circle of Dante's Inferno, sorcerers, astrologers, and false prophets have their heads twisted around on their bodies backwards, so they found it necessary to walk backwards because they could not see ahead of them.
Okay.
So if your sin was pretending that you could see the future, I'm going to put your head on backwards.
That's... Okay. That doesn't seem like the worst thing I could think of. But sure. It's just a weird... You know what I mean? Like, you're going to have to look at your ass forever. Ha! It just feels really juvenile, but I guess. Huh.
Yeah, it doesn't.
But yeah, I'm just thinking about Anthony, like, you know, the hoisted by your own petard. How that would work out for him. Because Ford, I don't like you, frankly.
You want all the bad
and
things
I want
to happen
bad things to happen to you. But I'm not sure what would be totally appropriate. Like the closest thing would be that they take him and make him a host, or they put him in a room and then come in and chat with him and use him as like a therapy tool.
Oh God.
You know what I mean?
Let's see, what else did you have? The moment with Dolores on the train and your idea that there are different moments happening.
Right.
And
I don't think that's true. I think it's symbolic.
Oh, okay. It's more about her really being
so focused.
Right, okay. And we didn't really talk about what we think about the possible espionage with the satellites and what you think that might be or who might be behind that.
Yeah, it's really interesting how, like, that's a pretty big deal, that reveal, and yet it's like the least
it's sort of buried
part.
in under everything else, right?
Yeah. I'm just like, oh yeah, there's probably somebody stealing secrets. Well, you know, what are you gonna do?
All right.
I guess really the reason that I feel that way, though, is like, oh, they're stealing secrets from this park that's on the verge of collapse from the inside. Good luck. Go right ahead, I guess.
Frame it like that. Like, oh, those people who are putting all this effort into stealing secrets are going to have egg on their face.
Exactly.
All right. Was there anything else from this episode that we feel like needs repeating, or do you want to venture into what you'd like to see next episode?
I would not.
Okay.
Venturing in this show, it feels like I'm trying to hit a piñata that's like hanging in a gymnasium, and you just pushed me in through the door, and I'm standing a foot inside the door, and the piñata's all the way on the other side of the room, but I don't know that because I have my blindfold on.
She's
so
just
I'm
swinging
just
wildly.
swinging and walking around swinging and like almost falling over because I'm swinging so hard. And I never hit anything. I'm nowhere near it. And like I keep thinking that, oh, well, I really tried though. I walked all over the place. But then you like show me, no, you literally stayed within this like 10-foot radius the whole time. That's how I feel like this is for me right now.
Oh, I love every minute of it.
Because I think that I'm really like trying to stay open to every possibility for what it could be. And I'm positive that later I'm going to like look back and be like, wow, I was really convinced that Arnold meant something and he was nothing. Like, it's going to turn out he has nothing to do with anything. He is long dead. And I was just fixated. And, you know, like, I'm trying to think. There was something in Harry Potter where you got really convinced that it meant something. Oh, my God.
There were like a million things.
I don't even remember what it was now, but I remember just being like, you kept going back to it.
I would just get like a dog with a bone. And and the more I would obsess about it, the more right it would feel. Yep. And then like there'd be a little voice being like, you should let this go now. But then the other voice would be like, no, hold on tighter. You're almost there.
Yeah. So I guess that's how I feel.
But then sometimes you hang on to an idea no matter how ridiculous it feels or sounds, and you get giant baby out of it. Like, you just say that shit until it becomes true.
I really do have a lot of respect for that one. That giant baby, I think I had more respect for it because it just doesn't wind up mattering. You know, like, it's not really important. It really isn't. But, like, how much you just decided that this was the hill you were going to die on. And you weren't wrong or anything. It was just that it didn't matter. That was enjoyable. I liked that one.
I savored that victory. I really did. I had so few and far between. All right. Well, I'm excited for the next episode.
Yeah, me too. All right, guys. Well, I'm going to wrap this sucker up because we recorded twice today and we are both very tired.
That is true.
So I hope y'all have enjoyed this. Leave a review on iTunes. I said I would check for reviews, but last week, but my Comment Cast is doing this weird thing because Comment Cast is the aggregator that I use to check reviews from all over the world. Otherwise, if I look on iTunes, all I see are US reviews. And it's doing this thing where it starts to refresh and then it just cuts out and shuts down. And I'm not sure why, so I have to figure that out. But if you've left a review, I will try and find it. If you really want me to read it, get in touch with me and let me know, especially if you're not in the US, because there's a chance I won't see it if Comment Cast doesn't come back up and start working again. But yeah, you can become a patron of the show at patreon.com/unspoiled and pledge whatever you want to get access to bonus stuff. And Rashawn and I just did the second episode of season 4 of Sherlock, which was posted yesterday, I think, and that's for $20 and up patrons. The first 3 seasons are available to all patrons, and $20 and up gets you the final season because it was a very special high roller thing that got us to do the first 3 seasons in the first place, and we weren't even going to do the final season until we needed something for our $20 patrons as a reward for them. So that's why that's kind of set aside. And yeah, the Jurassic Park book club will be coming out soon too. And that book was way more fun than I expected because having seen the movie holds up like crazy. Have you seen that movie recently?
Which movie?
Jurassic Park?
No, I've never. Well, I saw it in the theaters when it came out. I don't really think I spent a lot of time watching the movie. And then I never watched it again. And I've never seen any of the sequels either.
Well, I think it's on Netflix or somewhere. It's somewhere that you can get it easy, I think. You should check it out because I rewatched it a couple months ago with Owen. I can't believe the effects in this movie. They're far better than movies coming out today.
Really?
It's astonishing. And I know a lot of it is because they did practical effects and puppets and animatronics and stuff instead of it just being CGI. But it's really something. It's I was just, my jaw was on the floor a couple times. I was just like, how does this look so real? And because I love the movie so much and it held up so well, I hadn't been wanting to read the book because I just figured that something as silly as making dinosaurs would be way sillier novelized than it would be on like a big screen as a blockbuster.
Right.
There's a certain, allowance that you give to a story that's that silly when you know it's meant to be a summer movie versus a book. Well, I was wrong. That book was really fun and really got into some, if I was young and reading it, I'd have been bored. But as a grown-up reading it, they're getting into details of the park and the security and the setup of things and insurance liability stuff. And I'm like, ooh, this is so interesting. Oh my God. My young self would just be side-eyeing me so hard right now. It takes half a book for them to even get to a dinosaur. I'm like, yes, but the logistics. This is where I'm concerned about now. Oh, but yeah, so y'all should tune in for the Jurassic Park episode on the book club feed. I guess that's it. Anything you want to add, ma'am?
No, ma'am.
All right. Well, everyone, I hope you're enjoying the show, and we will see you next week with a new episode. Toodaloo, motherfuckers.
Bye, guys. The logistics.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.